Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Jenny, I'm a life coach, and today I'm talking about how everyone has multiple personalities. We're talking about inner parts, your inner parts. There's two different kinds of people who know they have multiple personalities and people who don't, but everyone does. Um, in the extreme, this looks like dissociative identity disorder, right? But everyone has trauma, which means everyone has parts. And you will be a lot better off if you start to recognize them and if you start to work with them. So, when we go through trauma, we experience fragmentation or soul loss. Parts of our core identity break off or get repressed or get rejected or are pushed away. And so, healing means reintegrating those parts. So there's a lot of great books on this, especially books by Dr. Schwartz. And so he talks about names for these different parts. And one of these types of parts are the exiles or the inner children. These are your wounded inner children. Before you went through trauma, this part of you was innocent, creative, and playful. Now they're wounded. Now they're sad. Now they're depressed. When they get triggered, you end up stuck in bed for days. You cry. You feel defeated. You feel broken. Um, awareness of the inner child means awareness of the joyful, um, innocent, spontaneous parts of ourselves. And they also contain the wounded parts, which very often show up in our adult relationships. So, this is the wounded, creative, playful, innocent part. And there may be multiple inner children, okay, of different ages, depending on what age you experienced trauma. The other type of part are your protectors. Protectors are there to keep your exiles, your inner children, from getting triggered. They don't want you to feel painful emotions. They don't want you to remember painful memories, but they are also misguided children trying to do jobs that are too big for them. And there's two different kinds. Managers are organized. They like to keep life predictable. They're critical. They like to keep you busy. They're prone to overworking. Okay. They're over serious. Um, their job is to criticize you, to keep you small, that so you can't take risks and get hurt. They keep you busy working so that you can't stop to feel anything. Um, so it's hard to think of a critical part as a part that's trying to protect you, but it's because they don't want you to take a risk and fail. They would rather you stay small because it's easier to control. It's easier to feel safe that way. Um, and then the other type of protector is your firefighter. These parts are chaotic. They're drawn to drugs, to sex, to self harm. They're impulsive. They try to distract you from pain. Their job is to react to triggers. So, managers are there to prevent triggers, firefighters are there to react to triggers. They create chaos to distract you from whatever is hurting you. They use drugs, sex, and self harm to numb your emotions. Um, they are the demons in the shadows who keep you running away from your reality. You might also think of your firefighter as your inner teenager. Okay. Um, these parts are usually very angry, very reckless. Okay. So so you don't have to use these terms, use whatever works for you, but you're kind of get the idea of what these different parts look like. At one point, they helped you survive, but now they're probably keeping you stuck. Um, so they have positive and negative polarities. They have both helpful and unhelpful qualities. But remember, they're children and they're trying to do jobs that are too big for them. And so integration means gradually inviting these orphan parts of you home and welcoming them back into your inner family. If left unintegrated, they become saboteurs, thwarting your efforts to create a life that you desire. When you start viewing these parts from a place of compassion, you'll see your behaviors as attempts to stay safe or meet a need. And it is only when you accept these parts that you are able to change, paradoxically. So, parts work means losing your mind to find your senses. Trauma lives on the right side of the brain. When you approach it from the logical left side, you're not connecting to it. So, you're going to feel crazy. You're going to think you're crazy if you start treating yourself like you have multiple personalities. But that's how we connect to trauma is we get a little bit crazy. Okay. So there's these paradoxes in healing where you go to heal something like your impatience demon, but then in the end you end up needing to use that patience. By forsaking it, you learn to wield it when before it wielded you. So learning to work with these parts means right now these parts are coming out unconsciously, right? Impulsively. Um, but once you learn how to work with the parts, you are able to do a dance where you are kind of letting them come out to play, but you're doing it in an intentional and conscious way. And so that's kind of what integration looks like. Those parts are always there, they're always going to be there, but it means learning to dance with them, learning to intentionally choose when to use them instead of letting them drive the car. Okay. So, so the ways these demons and these dragons can show up, this is just another word for parts, is to look at what you don't like in other people, because that's usually a part that you either have or a part that you're repressing. The more you dislike a trait in someone else, the more likely you are avoiding it in yourself. So if you want to start to see how these parts are, where these parts are, start to look at what traits you don't like in other people. Um, Normal people have the same subconscious thoughts and impulses that narcissists do. They just have enough moral compass not to act on them. But it's important to see those parts, know that they're there, learn to dance with them. Okay, because everyone has demons. You either know what you are or you don't. And the people who don't know, don't accept they have demons, are the most dangerous ones. Okay. Healed people don't act like monks, healed people act like themselves. To be a saint is to fail to be human. So, embracing your dark side is what I'm talking about here, but not letting it run the show. Okay. Um, there's a really great book called Taming Your Dragons, and he gives these dragons different names. It's by Jose Stevens, who's amazing. And so I'm going to talk about the dragons that he brings up. So these are the dark shadow parts, right? That we want to start to see so we can start to work with them. Faulty self-esteem produces arrogance, demons or dragons, and self-deprecation dragons. Um, Most people are either too arrogant or too insecure. But arrogance is just a type of insecurity that manifests differently. And to escape either of those, you have to be vulnerable, but not vulnerable in a way that you're this victim who needs constant reassurance and acceptance from other people. Um, with self-compassion and not ego is the difference. Is the difference here? Self-deprecation is the fear of success. These dragons breed when love is conditional and based on impossible standards. To cope, we learn to fail before we try because accepting failure is less painful than trying and failing it anyway. Over time, this attitude becomes self fulfilling. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you are right. But failure can be used as a tool. It's like playing Battleship, it just helps you figure out where to aim next. And so to tame it, stop over apologizing, stop making yourself small, stop criticizing yourself, and stop playing it safe. Embrace every challenge as an experiment, not a test, because you cannot fail an experiment. To tame arrogance, this is the fear of not being worthy. Arrogance looks like vanity, but feels like insecurity. These dragons hatch when we're forced to be perfect or overperform, times when it is not safe to be vulnerable, times when we are ridiculed for our mistakes. But feelings of pride come from admitting our wrongs, reveling in our imperfections, and accepting our best as good enough. Revel in your imperfections and accept your best as good enough. When we feel overly hindered by the external, this is how impatience and martyrdom become manifested. Um, Martyrdom is self-victimization. It's weaponizing your trauma. It's weaponizing your problems. But weaponizing your trauma is an insult to your injury. Um, Martyrdom is the fear of deserving love. And martyrdom dragons act like perpetual victims. Inside, they feel exiled, wronged, and abused because once upon a time they were victims. These dragons appear when we are treated like an inconvenience, when we are rewarded for accepting neglect, or when our caregivers act like we owe them something for existing. And to tame it, you have to switch from an external locus of control, seeing how everything bad always happens to you, to an internal locus of control, which looks like I have the power to make better choices. Life is like sailing. You're at the mercy of the wind, and you can't often go in a straight line, but you can at least steer the boat. You just have to get up and steer. So if you're determined to look for proof you're not loved, you will always find it. So while you're steering your boat, learn to love yourself instead. And that is when you will discover that you are not as hopeless as you feel. Impatience is the fear of missing out. Impatience demons look hasty and they look blunt, but they feel anxious and stressed. These dragons grow when we are steamrolled by a parent or constantly rushed, when we are taught to constantly work toward future goals instead of enjoying the present, or when we are deprived of opportunities. But the present moment lasts forever, which means you have all the time you need. So you have to focus on what you can control and then look for ways to enjoy the wait. Um, you can only plant the seeds, you can't rush the harvest. So look for ways, plant your seeds, and then look for ways to enjoy the wait. Um, Dysfunctional self expression breeds greed and self destruction dragons. To tame greed, this is the fear of emptiness. It's when you use money, sex, food, or power, anything in excess to avoid pain. These dragons happen when we are abandoned or offered substitutes for love, bribes of candy, toys, or money to pacify us when what we really need is nurturing. Over time, we learn to identify with what we have instead of who we are. And so to tame it, you have to practice gratitude instead of craving more. Look for the desire behind the desire. So if you want a nice car, it's so you can feel what? If you want women, it's so you can feel what? Shift your focus from external validation, like I want good grades, to internal goals, like I want to learn. Practice generosity instead of scarcity. Compete with yourself instead of others. And share the wealth where you can because the rewards for healing greed are priceless. So choose your addictions consciously. Taming self destruction. This is the fear of losing control. Self destruction looks like fearlessness, but feels like hopelessness. It's when you challenge death because half of you wants to escape and half of you wants proof that you are worthy of life. These dragons uh, show up when we are abandoned or abused. Children who are mistreated always blame themselves. Over time, they also start punishing themselves because controlling your own destruction feels safer than letting it happen to you. If anyone tries to stop you, you punish them too. They get hurt too. So to tame it, you have to choose life, heal your addictions, stop running from your problems, clean up the damage. Suffering just stops when you decide you've sabotaged yourself enough, when you decide that you deserve better, that you do not deserve to be destroyed, that you do not deserve to suffer. You have to get out of your own way and be opening to receiving the things that you didn't know that you needed. because you're putting too many limits on what the universe and other people can do for you. The real thrill lies in surrendering control, and life starts when you let go of that control. A faulty, dysfunctional relationship with authority creates a stubbornness dragon. Stubbornness is the fear of change. These dragons feed on unpredictability. When change was forced on us without our consent, or when our talents are exploited, when we are robbed of our autonomy, over time, this grows into a distrust of new experiences. And eventually, we rebel against all change because we've lost the ability to see the difference between force and suggestion. It fools us into feeling like we have power, but we are only hurting ourselves. And to tame it, you have to learn to accept feedback from people you trust and accept your mistakes with grace. Take accountability for them. Learn that change can be fun and surprise can be a good thing. And so your homework is to talk to yourself. Pick one of these dark sides to talk to. Look at their good qualities. What are they trying to protect you from? And then make an arrangement with them. Um, that's everything I have for today, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you want more information, there's links in the description.